Here.
Teleconference. And education.
We have Dan Robinson.
Yes.
Ala Blaine.
Here.
Ron Herring.
Here.
Sam Kiter.
Here.
Judy Moss.
Here.
Bill Root.
Here.
Marlene Varner.
Here.
Bob Smith.
Here.
Beth High.
Here.
And we have Helen Vacassian.
Joining the conference.
Bob Nicholson.
Okay. Okay. So, wait, go ahead. Definitely have a quorum. I know you're missing, like you said, Julie Hicks will not be on the call. We don't have Charlie Polk yet or Joe Walton.
Joining the conference.
Jack Matheson.
So we're missing Walt Boyer. Yes, Walt Boyer, Joe Walton, and Charlie Polk.
What about Clint Willis?
Yeah, Clint Willis we're missing.
Sorry, it's 2249318. There's an 8 on that.
That is correct.
Okay.
And a pound sign.
Yeah. Okay.
Joining the conference.
Charles Polk.
Hey, Charlie.
How are you?
It's snowy again.
It's snowing again.
Yeah.
Well, I've been catching up on my email, and I'm glad to see that you and Larry have finally had an exchange of emails.
Yes, we did. I am going to get back to him.
Joining
Shortly,
the
but-
conference.
Walton Boyer.
Oh, hey, Walt. So, Bennett, I think we are indeed have a quorum. Is Clint on? No. Okay.
Is Jack Cummings on?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Ron Herring. I'd like to make a comment before you start the meeting.
Yes, please.
Okay, this is Ron Herring. I sent an email to you explaining, I guess, my own deficiency in following up the voting. But the fact of the matter is that I don't have any authority to vote. And it's part of that whole debate that you are having around the question of should non-residents be able to vote. And I explained that position in that email of apology to you. And I do that more personally with this phone call. But I just wanted to be clear that when you call for a vote on any of the issues that you're speaking to today, that I am not able to vote and will not vote.
And that is not because Ron is not a member of NACRA, but his community is not part of the NACRA family, I guess. And so theoretically, according to the current bylaws, he is not eligible to vote.
I've not been designated to speak on anyone's behalf.
But I'm going to bend the rules just a little bit to ask that if you have a comment, please feel free to make it.
There.
Okay, Bennett. I think I heard Joe Walton call in. I just want to confirm he's on the line.
I'm here.
Perfect. Okay, very good. Okay. Well, Madam Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of start the call, and I know obviously we'll probably we might be on and off with Al. So please proceed, Bennett.
Okay. I'll try to give my best shot at setting the stage to the rest of today's process. Obviously, a number of you have circulated formal emails or formal written commentary related to the overall subject matter of where we are. I guess what I would try to do is kind of regroup a little bit. That just to remind the folks that are on the call.
Joe Wilson here again. I accidentally cut myself off.
Okay. That in essence, the organization has had a fairly modest set of bylaws since it started. There's obviously been some iterations and changes over the last number of years, but I think everybody hopefully would concur that you're in a posture now that necessitates a change to take you to the next stage of your organization's life cycle. Obviously, there clearly seems to be a divided opinion relative to how that's accomplished. To some extent, you have gone through certain articles and sections that you as a group that you've seen reflected in Mr. Cummings' very good minutes that have been posted. You have passed certain articles, but your core of the bylaws remains under discussion relative to who comprises the board, what their voting rights and authority may be, and certainly your I guess I'd say in general membership categories. I think if people are comfortable, given the nature of the complexity of some of the stuff you're discussing, if the group approves, you may want to at least make a motion to waive Robert's Rules of Order only for the circumstance whereby you can enter into discussion on key issues prior to making a motion, so you're not going to be in a position of having to make a lot of amendments to an amendment. But ultimately, when you take a final action on a particular article or section, clearly, that's when you would take formal motions, take a formal vote of those authorized to vote, and then, make a decision. But I know this, because I think you have, to some extent, on some of these issues, a 50-50 opinion of the group represented. It would be cumbersome to try to get to that without just going into general discussion. I don't know. I think Article 5, to some extent, we still obviously have some unfinished business on Article 5 of the proposal. And I say that just because it obviously continues to correlate to who can populate the board under Article 7. So I don't know if you just want to maybe have some initial conversation related to those two topics before you can reach some, at least majority opinion on who populates the board and what their voting rights are, given the feedback that's come forward since the last conference call.
So if we did that, then could we do this by consensus that we would waive Robert's rules for the discussion portion and then pick it back up again when it comes to actually making a formal proposal?
Bob Nicholson, let's set aside Robert's rules for the discussion.
I second it.
Is there any discussion? No. Then please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, that'll set the stage then at much easier setup.
Ruth, I'll make a comment before we get started.
Please.
I would like to just remind the board that NACRA is a very young organization, got started in 1997 in New Orleans, and we've really been struggling since then to evolve into a truly national organization. And I think under Ruth's leadership the last couple of years, and particularly in bringing Bennett's company on board as professional advisors, consultants, or partners in this struggle, that we really need to start looking at NACRA as a real national organization with great potential, and make your decisions away from the old-fashioned, we've never done it that way, or we've always done it this way type attitude. And as somebody said, think out of the box and look for solutions that we've never thought of before, that Bennett is guiding us to. And Jack Combs' committee just devoted a multitude of hours to coming up with this document that we're now digesting and voting on. And always keep in mind that the bylaws are never in concrete. As organizations evolve, they can be changed. And that's what's happening now. We're evolving, and we need to get this done where we can get on about the business of serving residents on a national basis. Thank you, sir. Ma'am.
And I thank you, and if I could take off my president's hat just for a moment, I could not agree with you more. We do have to think outside of the box. We have to think that there are other methods, and there are the nuances that are coming in. Bennett, just while we're talking about that, would you speak to the fact that, I have paper everywhere, and I can't find the one I'm looking for, but you sent us two pages. One was the National Continuing Care Residents Association Strategic Analysis, and the other was including the top board questions and this sort of thing. But in there you noted that the fact we have to think outside the box, that we have to, one you just said, I found it, two documents that you set out, and that the fact that these were background documents on board effectiveness, and the fact that most national associations now have gone to a leaner policy-making board governance model, and that's really what we're at here. So we don't have to worry about 2,000 people on the board. We're going to have a workable board that will be talking to one another. And now, I agree, Charlie. I thank you for those comments. And so, let us proceed, Bennett, please.
Yes, I just, I thought I didn't want to add additional narrative that would confuse people, but rather just give some context to what's happening with organizations around the country.
Please do.
I respect, because I've talked to several of the folks on the phone individually, I respect, obviously, the intent or the objective to remain, quote-unquote, to provide an inclusive governance structure where your different categories of membership are represented in some manner. So I think everybody can agree that you don't want to leave anybody disenfranchised. What I was trying to share with the group as you make your decisions, is that make sure that your decisions, are not counterproductive to your mission and your vision, which you adopted a few weeks back. From the standpoint, most organizations have found if you do not have a fairly lean policy-making board, you effectively can become an organization that's paralysis by analysis and ultimately become ineffective in serving your membership's best interest. And that was really what I was trying to stress, is that most groups have gone through the same conversation you're having and have reached the conclusion that, to best serve a membership, even in the national perspective, is to have a smaller working board. It's not to say that board is not accountable to a broader group of stakeholders. It is, but, you cannot make timely and generally can't make effective decisions, after a certain number of people are, voting, if you will. So that was really the main message I was trying to convey. And then the other document was really just some best practices that the board use them as just background documents to kind of give you some outside perspective of what other groups are doing.
And it is happening.
This is Ron Herring.
Yes.
If I might just make a comment, I just opened email just before the meeting, and historically my national relationships have been with the Lutheran Church under the umbrella of what's called LSA, or Lutheran Services in America. And if you have any interest in an expanded version of what I want to share with you in the spirit of what Bennett is attempting to share as you make decisions about the future, the current CEO, who is fairly new with LSA, gave a speech, and she used as the beginning framework of her speech a piece of scripture from Joshua 3 verse 4, and the quote is, "We have never been this way before," end quote. And then she enumerated in an expanded presentation to one of the larger Lutheran groups in the country a number of principles, and they're very brief. I think you'll find them affirming what Bennett is saying. How do we navigate when we have never been this way before? 1, recognize that the world has changed, and we need to think differently going forward. The critical importance of vision and innovation. 3, working with partners in new and different ways. The importance of coming together as a collective voice. The importance of telling your story. Measuring your effectiveness and the outcomes of your programs. And finally, the importance of communication with your stakeholders. Those were the principles around which she built a fairly extensive presentation. And if you have more interest in more context to that and think it would be helpful to you, I can get it to you. It's the kind of stuff that affirms that kind of introductory kind of conceptualization and thinking format that you're talking about.
And it's absolutely true. We have never been this way before. And it's like going through a snowdrift out here in Connecticut, but we're going to get through it. And we have to slog, but we're going to get there. And so that's very pertinent to our discussions, because we have to think, as you suggested, outside of the box, and that's what we're trying to do. Thank you so much for those comments. And yes, I would like a copy of that, please. And Bennett, turn it back to you.
Sure. And I think just to put it in proper posture for where you left off on February 5th, we are going to focus on Article 7. I referenced, the membership article just because it will have some correlation, but, effectively, I believe there probably is some discussion, if you will, that you want to revisit potentially if there's a motion to reconsider the issue of non-voting ex officio members, and that general topic is probably the best place to start first.
This is Marlene, and I'd like to move to reconsider.
I'll second.
Okay. So, all right. Do you want to do this, Bennett?
Yeah, I would think effectively, there's quite a bit of discussion that you saw captured in the minutes relative to, how ex officio is defined, and obviously considering or bringing that issue back up for either discussion or a different action.
Okay, so Marlene has made the motion, has been seconded by Walt to reconsider. So we need 2/3 of the people who are on board. And how many? What's the number on board? 17? Is that what you said?
17, correct.
So we need 2/3 of that. Would
you say what you're reconsidering?
we are reconsidering? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, what we are reconsidering is the fact that, I lost it. I lost it. Where does it read, Bennett?
Yeah, effectively what we're looking at is the clause that would relate to whether or not a quote-unquote ex officio member of the board would be either voting or non-voting. Based on the actions taken on the February 5th, it would allow them to serve, but in a non-voting capacity.
Madam Chairman, this is Bob Nicholson in a parking lot at the University of Washington. Now, I'm the one that made the motion. I can withdraw the motion. Somebody can second it, and it can be at the table without too much trouble.
Except that
We've already had a vote. You can't.
We voted on it.
We can't take it. That's right. Anyway, but I think Bennett's point and the point that was made in the email this morning is that we do need to slim down, and boards like the League of Women Voters, et cetera, invite people in when they need their expertise or advice. And I think the reason that I made the non-voting, ex officio non-voting, was that somebody proposed that since we are related leading age, they should have a seat on our board. And then there was this California firestorm about being taken over by leading age. I just said, well, let them be on their ex officio. I have no interest in pressing the matter. I think it's better to follow the advice of the email this morning and just say, let the board invite people that they want to invite and not even have a category of non-voting or ex officio members.
I second that idea.
Well, Madam Chair, I need to bring it back.
Please.
I mean, effectively, there was a motion and a second on the floor to reconsider, and we haven't voted on that.
Let's do that.
Any other motion would be out of order until we conclude that.
Could you explain why? Why does it?
Could I ask a question? The reconsideration, is that whether the ex officio's member has a vote, or is that whether there is an ex officio member?
Simply to renew the discussion on that section.
The whole section.
And it's only section 3, I think. Article 7.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I'm totally confused here. As I understand it, there was a vote that is challengeable at best, because Dan Seeger, for example, voted, and I'm not sure whether he was qualified and Ron Herring. And now, as I understand it, to change that contested vote, we would need to have 2/3, a supermajority. What is the basis for that? Is it that this has now become part of our bylaws and takes 2/3 to change? Is that the reasoning? I don't.
What we're trying to do is to reconsider. Get a vote to reconsider, and so that's what we need, a 2/3. Is that correct, Bennett?
Well, I guess Mr. Cumming might be asking a question, and if I can fill in the blanks.
Sure.
I mean, the motion to reconsider, meaning you took an action, and if you want to bring that action back up for review, you have to have a 2/3 vote to reconsider. However, going to Mr. Cummings' point, if I can, I think maybe his intent or his guidance, which is probably not incorrect, is knowing that at least one, if not two, of the people who were counted in the votes last week were not authorized to cast votes, and it was such a close vote, we probably should revote and maybe don't even need to reconsider it.
That's a good statement of it. Yeah, that's my question. Because as I understand it,
I think that's the correct way to look at it.
yeah, the chair voted one way and she thought she was voting the other way, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
But absent that, I mean, you had at least one, if not two, folks online that were counted in the vote count and weren't actually able to cast a vote for that, for any of those policy actions. So I think with that, I mean, it's, if I can, is everybody comfortable based on that?
Well, I'm comfortable with that, but who has the list of who has been properly credentialed to vote? Because I'm not sure that I am either.
I have the list. And you and I fight over this one because you, Jack, are certainly eligible to vote, but you're not. So, but you know that by my proclamation long ago, you were indicated that you were a proper voting member. Mr. Seeger and Ron Herring, I can concede because of their status, not as members, not as resident members, but the fact that they do not belong to a community or an association. I mean, to a community. But nonetheless, I think we can proceed, Bennett, with that reconsideration.
Yeah, I think you have to, because you technically don't know what the actual vote outcome was. So let me just put it in posture for the group. You effectively had a motion and a second. So basically, what we need to do is to do a recount of that motion that was put forth on the 5th of February, and that motion basically moved that two directors be ex officio and non-voting. Bill Root seconded that motion, and that effectively you as a group took a vote on that measure. So effectively you need to re-vote on that measure.
Okay, according to the minutes on page 6 of Jack's minutes from the last meeting, a section down at the bottom says section 3, proposal was revised to only individual members in good standing can be directors, and no more than 2 supporting members can be selected as ex officio non-voting directors.
Correct.
Yeah, and that was also combined with the other section that board of directors shall be comprised of between 9 and 11 persons. So we can recall for the vote? I have a question. Yes. Marlene.
Pennsylvania eligible to have 2 voting members on this call.
Yes.
And who are they?
It should be George, whose name I never can pronounce, and that's
Yeah,
the
okay.
only one. That's the only one who was designated. So Mr. Seeger could be.
But he hasn't been designated.
No.
Okay. What about Virginia?
Virginia had, and Beth High is wearing 2 hats because she's her designated from Lake Ridge, and also Jean Hurley nominated her for the on the state.
Okay.
And New Jersey? New Jersey should also be. Pardon? If you can have 2 from a state, this is Beth High, why isn't Ron Herring? Well, he wasn't designated.
I see. Okay.
So what was actually designated, and what my sheet was Jean Hurley and Beth High.
Okay.
And so you're wearing 2 hats, Beth.
Yep.
Okay, so
I'm asking about New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Am I
Yes, you are.
Okay. Okay, but I wasn't on the February 5th call because I was sick again.
Yeah.
So I probably should not vote on this issue. But you're
What do you
voting
think,
on
Bennett?
Well, I mean, effectively, now anybody present today could cast a vote on any of these issues.
reconsideration.
Yes, because effectively
We're not re-voting. We're just voting to reconsider.
Yes.
well, no,
Okay.
have to reconsider it, if you will. We're just you were taking a new vote,
Okay.
Like basically, you're assuming that you never voted on this before.
Okay. Call the question. Wait, is there a second?
Now let's restate the motion so everybody understands what we're voting on.
All right, Bennett, would you read the motion?
Yes, effectively, the nature of the motion is that no more than two. Excuse me, I'll read it. Only individual members in good standing can be directors, and no more than two supporting members can be selected as ex officio non-voting members.
So anyone who refers to the original language should vote no.
What you can do, but vote your conscience. Is that correct, Bennett?
Yeah, I mean, everyone should vote their conscience, but they should also, recognize in this particular case, just for clarity purposes, you have to make the assumption based on the definition that these would be, a member of the board who is a non-resident. However, and so that's the distinction, if you will, and that they would be ex officio, but non-voting based on the Section 3 language presented on the last call.
Okay. And the word is, and the question, pardon me, Beth,
Yeah, the last word rather than members should be directors, shouldn't it?
yes, non-voting directors, you're right.
Yeah.
Members of the, and directors,
Yes,
and board of directors.
yeah, non-voting directors, yes, that's correct.
Okay,
Could
so,
I ask one? Excuse me. If you believe that there should be no non-resident members of the board at all, how do you vote on this issue?
what?
If you believe there should be no supporting members on the board, you should vote no.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we're,
Let me ask this, Ruth. How many people are legitimate voters for this
please,
question?
that's out of the question now. That's out of order. At this point, those people that Bennett has on deck are the ones who are eligible to vote, and you're one of them. So,
Yes,
we have called the question, and so all in favor of the motion, it reads, only individual members in good standing can be directors, and no more than two supporting members can be selected as ex officio non-voting directors. So, Bennett,
yes, I'll just, I think, assuming it will be a close vote, we can either do a voice vote and I can call people by name, or we can do ayes and then count votes depending on the outcome.
Roll call. Thank you.
Do roll
do the roll call, and then
Okay.
I'm abstaining unless I have to break a tie. All right, so Bennett, you proceed.
I believe the request, if it's okay, if I'll do a roll call vote. So if you're voting in favor of the motion, say aye. If you're voting against the motion, say nay. Ed Lawler.
Aye.
Jack Cumming.
Nay.
Ruth Walsh.
I'm not voting yet.
Dan Robinson. Mr. Robinson, you still online? Okay. Al LeBlanc.
Nay.
Sam Kiter.
Nay.
Judy Moss.
Nay.
Bill Root.
Nay.
Marlene Varner.
Nay.
defeated. We'd have to reword it now.
That's correct. Yes. Yes. What you've defeated is as what you've defeated or what's been defeated was as written. You still have the opportunity, should there be a majority opinion, to do so, to address the issue of supporting members on the board in any capacity.
Can we just put that in the operations manual as we need supporting members council, we invite them and not get into a hassle about it?
You know, just leave the section 3 the way it was drafted. Only individual members in good standing can be directors. And then the board is free to invite anybody who wants to.
Who was that? Who was this? Spoke?
Sam Kiter.
Oh, Sam Kiter, right. Any other comments?
I would like to make a motion, and this is Bob Smith, and to be considered at this time.
Right. I didn't understand
What Bob said.
Bob said he would like to make a motion at this time.
What's the motion?
In the bylaws.
Article 3, Section 3.
Well, we don't know the nature of his motion yet, so
I know.
you need to clarify the nature of your motion and what section it's regarding.
It's regarding Section 5, and who are residents, or who are members and who are not.
I believe you're in another article.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not in that article yet, sir.
Oh.
Do we need to address this particular one, Section 3?
Yeah, we're still in Article 7, Section 3.
Okay.
So this is Sam Kiter again. I move that the section 3 read, only individual members in good standing can be directors.
Period. Is there a second?
Warrior, I'll second the motion.
Okay, so it simply reads that only individual members in good standing can be directors. And there is a second to the motion. Is there any discussion? Pardon?
This is Bob Smith. Could we change that to only individual resident members?
Mr. Smith,
I accept that as a friendly change, and I accept it.
Mr. Boyer, would you accept that here, the secondary motion?
No, I do not accept that.
Okay.
Okay.
I would second it then.
But you can't third it. It's already been seconded.
No, Ruth, I withdrew my second because of the change.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, but we're in a fog out here in Seattle, and I don't understand what you're talking about. Is an individual member a resident?
Not necessarily.
What are the other members are?
Okay.
We have a lot of members who are not residents.
Okay. Let me, Madam Chair, let me give some guidance to the board.
Please do.
Within the context of Article 5, which was your membership article, which a lot of those articles you have adopted as of February 5th, you have Section 5, which relates to individuals who are residents, may become individual members. But you have Section 6, which also is likely an individual who are not residents. They may become what's called supporting members. However, they both are, quote unquote, from a literal sense, individuals. So the way it's constructed, you could make the interpretation, and I think rightly so, that, maybe a resident, it may be a non-resident, but they're both, quote unquote, individual paying members, if that helps clarify.
And that is the same in the original bylaws. So there's nothing new here. These are standing as was.
You have those categories now.
That's why it's important to have resident members.
But,
Okay, Madam Chair,
NACRA for a long time, and it certainly has expertise.
okay, Madam Chair, I think the issue here is some people feel that only residents should be directors in NACRA. The Section 2 incidentally says the directors are nominated by the nominating committee, and that would serve as a check on getting somebody in who might be hostile to the interests of residents. But some people say only residents should be allowed to be directors. At the same time, one of the questions that we may be advocating on behalf of residents is that residents be allowed to participate on provider boards. If we take a very strong stance here that says that you have to be a resident, then there's no reason why they can't take a strong stand saying residents should be excluded. And I think that's a question we want to give some care to. I think if we can rely on our nominating committee, which is now going to be the state association presidents, to exercise good judgment to keep us from having someone. And there's a question where you mentioned Larry Minix. I think a lot of people would feel that his commitments are too strongly toward the provider side, that he could be an effective advocate for resident interests. So that might be a question, but that would be something the nominating committee could be addressing. I don't think we want to tie our hands here and work against the best interests of residents who want to have representation on the boards of their provider organizations.
I don't think that that's an analogous situation. Dan Kiter.
Oh, well, Boyer, I agree with Jack wholeheartedly, and I've been on the board of my CCRC now for 2 years. It was a tough fight to get us on the board.
Are you a voting member of that board?
I am a voting member of the board.
And you are a voting member of the board as well. Well, see, now you are the unusual ones, because there's some where people can get onto the board, but they are non-voting members and they can't say a word. So, it's like us saying to your person, you're a second-class citizen, and that's the feeling. So I agree with Jack, and that I take my hat off as president, but, consider this very carefully. And so, Bennett, let me just you take it from there, please.
Well, let me tell where we are, because we have got quite a bit of discussion. But there is a motion, because Mr. Boyer withdrew his motion based on the amendment that was proposed. So you have Mr. Kiter and Mr. Smith have made a motion and a second that Section 3 should say only individual resident members in good standing can be directors. So that is a motion on the floor.
And it has been seconded. Is there a call for the question, please?
Can I make a comment before you call for question? Charles Polk. In addition to what Jack said about giving support for the resident position that they want to be on the provider boards, the president and CEO of the community where I live has been life member of NACRA for years, and if there was any way, shape or fashion, twisting the arm or otherwise, I could get that individual on our board, I would do anything for that to happen. But I can guarantee you, no provider at this point has any desire to serve on our board. The ones that have joined the organization's only desire is to support an organization that they believe in. And I think that is true across the board.
Thank you for that, Charlie. Will you take the vote, please, Bennett?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, let me restate the motion so everyone knows what you're voting on. Effectively, the motion would provide this in the bylaws that only individual resident members in good standing can be directors. That's the motion. All right. The question's been called. I'm going to go down just like I did before.
Okay.
If you're in favor of the motion, obviously, if you want to limit the board to only residents, you would vote in favor. If you're opposed to that restriction, you would vote nay.
Ray, please.
Ed Lawler.
Aye.
Jack Cumming.
Nay.
Dan Dan Robinson. I don't know if he's joined us back or not. Al LeBlanc.
Yay.
Sam Kiter.
Aye.
Judy Moss.
Aye.
Bill Root.
Aye.
Miss Varner.
Nay.
Bob Smith.
Aye.
Beth High.
Nay.
Helen Vacason. Sorry.
It's okay. Aye.
Bob Nicholson.
Abstain.
Okay. Joe Walton.
Nay.
Walt Moyer.
Nay.
Charlie Paul.
Nay.
Jack Matheson.
Jack Matheson, aye.
Okay. 1. Okay. I believe it. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, Madam Chair, you did not cast a vote. There's 8 votes in favor, 6 opposed, and 1 abstain.
So my vote would not.
Yeah, effectively the vote is to
It just will be only individual
Only
resident
residents.
members.
only residents.
Okay. And so it has passed.
That is correct.
Okay. With 8 nays and
Eight
yeas
in
and 6
favor.
nays. Okay.
Correct, and 1 abstention,
All right.
and 1 no vote. Unless you want to record a vote.
Well, I could record it. Aye. No. I see I did it again. Only individual members in good standing can be directors. Nay.
Right, only residents, right. So I mean, just for the vote count.
For the record.
But you would be voting against that limitation.
Yep.
Okay. So it still passes, though.
All right.
Okay. All right. Okay. I believe in terms of Section 4, let's see. You had some changes.
Is this
that were
the old, the new designation,
Yeah.
Section 4?
Yes.
Great.
If you look back at the February 5th minutes, if you have them for reference, effectively there was a motion and a second. We actually never called the vote on it to basically take the word ordinarily out of Section 4, and then noted that the word initial was not appropriate, so maybe it should just say the classes, which is probably a technical amendment that now that motion was passed by acclamation, so I think Section 4 you're in good shape.
All right.
So Section 5 and 6 speak to the nominating committee. And
May I interject something here as the nominating committee chair, Beth High? I feel that Section 5 through 8 should be a separate article under nominations because it's squashed in the middle of the board of directors information, and it's inappropriate.
This is,
I agree, and I second that motion.
yeah, I could say I had a motion.
Okay. Is there any?
Matheson concurs. Let's put
Any
that
other
if there's any
discussion?
unanimous consent, Madam Chair, if there's no opposition to that.
If there's no opposition, we will. Would you just signify by saying aye? Aye.
Oh.
Unanimous consent. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay.
Now, okay, so but effectively we're going to renumber, which that's what people have approved, but you still need to speak to the language that's effectively comprised in sections 5 through 8 that relate to the committee itself.
And how to proceed that way?
I
90 days before the annual meeting. And I would never get a slate ready 90 days ahead.
Yeah, but
99 days, it says here.
90 days before the annual meeting.
That's much too.
What time frame do you think?
Well, I put down 45, which is what I've been.
Okay, 45. Is there any?
Even 30 would be worth considering.
Yeah. What do you say, Marlene?
If I can, Madam Chair, I'm just, I know Mr. Matheson suggested 30, but I want people to recognize what, we're talking about Section 6. It says at least 90 days, a call for nominees will be sent to the membership, not the slate itself. Everybody
Developing a state.
No. We're looking at Section 6. It says a call.
Oh, I see. Okay.
A slate of nominees will be sent to the member. A call for nominees will be sent, not the slate.
So that you could live with 90 days.
All 90 days is reasonable.
Could you live with that, Beth? In fact,
But I don't see the word call in there.
Yeah.
It's right. It's right
Oh,
behind.
afterwards. Okay. Cool.
So you could go. You could
Teleconference.
Dan Robinson.
Oh, Dan, it's good to see you or hear you. Okay, so we're actually, Dan, we're on.
Okay. Then I withdraw the motion.
Okay, alrighty. And would you withdraw the second, Walt?
Yes.
You did. We did. Okay. All right. So anything else, Beth?
Yes, on section 6.
Beth.
First, this is the
No, I'm
Yeah,
fine.
just a minute, Beth. Do you have anything else on that
No,
nominating
that was
committee?
the only things that really struck me.
All right, Bill Root.
If the first sentence, most qualified for such service, if indeed in Article 8 the board is to select who are the officers, it would seem that the persons who are going to be electing the board should know who is standing for which office. And this really is an Article 8 issue, but it starts with the nominating committee.
Well, I think people may disagree. The norm in organizational practice is for the board to name the officers that are needed to have the organization function. And the unusual thing is the approach that we've had in the past. So what is your objection to it, Bill? Are you standing for office?
We have the similar situation where I am at reads like this, and there is considerable opposition to our bylaws, which are similar to this, because they think that the members who are electing members to the board should know whether they are electing a president or not.
Okay, yeah. That doesn't. What does anybody
At
think?
least I think we should know what we're doing.
What we do. I hope that's the whole idea.
I think what Bill is saying,
Listen to this.
if
At the moment when the election of the board comes up, the people electing would not know which of those candidates on the slate are willing to serve as president and the other officers.
okay, if I understand, what Bill is saying is he does not have confidence that the board would follow the will of the membership. So he would like to have the membership have more of a say and the board to have less of a say, because he's not confident that the board would reflect what he thinks the best interests of the membership might be.
With all due respect, Jack, that's not my point. My point is that I think those who are electing would want to know which of the people they are voting for has indicated a willingness to serve as president.
All right, but
Well, there was
The nominating committee hasn't found anybody willing to serve as president, then there's a problem.
Well, part of this process, if I could just interject one thing, is that the president-elect, whenever he or she is elected, is going to stand in line to become the president. This is a very strange organization wherein there is no president-elect, and that person has to be trained and has to be knowledgeable about what they're getting into. So that's going to be a given. And Jack, you want to speak further to the process?
well, Well, I think you've just described it. I think you came into office without really, you were just expected to jump in and be ready to run, and that was difficult. I think it's been difficult for a lot of people. I'd be interested to. I'd be interested. I'd be interested.
I got off my era.
Okay, I'd be interested to hear what Ron Herring has to say, because Ron has had considerable governance experience, and how have things worked in his experience?
Well, my experience has been, first of all, I would just make the observation that my experience is never related to a totally volunteer-run organization. And that's an entirely different animal than an organization that had professional staff. So my experience has been with organizations that have professional staff. What you're working toward, if I have followed the evolving process of what is termed moving to the next level, is to take that next step, which is the orientation in the direction of professional staff. I would support that, and Bennett has spoken to that, I think, pretty resolutely, that in the world we live in today, organizations that have professional staff and a board that is fully informed, well-educated, have the expertise and are vetted for their expertise to serve on the board, are the people that you're looking for. And in your debate and discussion, if I were a voting member, I would want people like A.V. Powell and Catherine Pearson, if they would serve, to give you the diversity on the board as a non-resident and who has the expertise to help you move through policy decisions as you move the organization forward in the future. I would give them the full power of vote, and I agree with those people. We've just come through, as many of you know, bankruptcy here at the Glebe. Finally, the Glebe, rumor has capitulated, and I think this comes from the pressure that the Senate study group that I served on here in Virginia has put on the providers to give residents membership on the board. They didn't say they ought to be able to vote. So what the Glebe is doing, and I think many other providers will do in Virginia, is to put on one provider with no vote. Well, you don't have to think very long about this to figure out if the provider wishes to, they can stymie that very quickly so that it has, in effect, no utility toward bringing the resident's voice to the table of the provider. So I think that's the kind of orientation I think you're moving to, but you're having the struggle of change, and the struggle of change is not an easy one. I've been through one of those. I spent over 30 years in rebuilding an entire organization almost from the ground up, and it is hard, and your struggles are not unique, and you should not feel badly about them. But one of the issues that I'm concerned about, I guess, just trying to stand back and look into the future, and thinking what I think I know about the development in the CCR industry and the whole big macro picture of aging, you're not going to have a whole lot of time to get over the hump in terms of getting to the next level. That's going to have to happen fairly soon. You have a competitor in Leading Edge who is doing many of the things that you have talked about doing, and from what little bit I can see, they're several steps ahead of you. And I'm not talking about competing with them. I think the secret to this is getting into a good, trusting, collaborative relationship with them that is
if the board isn't in a working relation within itself and bonded with each other, then it doesn't work because it's a volunteer board. And we are still far away from having staff. I don't see any money that we have possibly for staff in the next 24 hours or 6 months. And we need to have a working board that works with each other. And for that reason, the officers need to come from within the board, not chosen from without. And I think we have plenty of ways of bringing in A.V. Powell and others as consultants, as friends, as whatever you want to use them for. But we can do that too. But not at this stage. We're still just growing up. And we need to grow a little bit more, and we need to get our very convoluted membership thing organized a little bit better than we have right now. Before we...
Marlene, may I raise the question?
Madam Chair, after Ms. Warner, can I go? Madam Chair,
Yes, please.
Okay.
Marlene, did you...
Is the issue whether the nominating committee is going to nominate directors or nominate directors and officers?
Are you asking me? Asking the group.
According to the bylaws, the nominating committee would simply do the nomination of people for the board. The board itself will elect their officers.
Right. And
Paul, can I comment, please,
I'm
ma'am?
concurring with that.
Yep.
This is still where my
Wait a minute, Charlie Paul.
Just for the board's information, I serve on the Florida Life Care Residence Board, and for quite some time, that board is only elected directors, and then the board elects their officers from the director. One thing the nominating committee has done an excellent job of in my 12 years experience with them is always having someone nominated on the board who is willing to serve as the president, someone who is qualified and willing to serve as the secretary, someone who is qualified and willing to serve as the treasurer. So that has not been a problem for 12 years, I know, and the residents throughout Florida believe that they are electing their officers, and because they elect the director that becomes an officer.
That's great.
So it's worked extremely well while I've been with it. I've served on 3 other not-for-profit boards, 2 of which were in Florida and 1 was in another state, and all of those boards elected their own officers as well,
And I might just comment, the intent there isn't that there's going to be a huge deliberative meeting with 50 people. The idea is that, yeah, you want to cast your net for talent as widely as you can, and the state association presidents are the best source for the nominating committee, the group that's actually.
We have 8. But that does not preclude anyone from any of those state associations or any of those presidents for nominating people from outside that do not have a state organization. So they have a pretty good grasp of the membership and members within and without the state. So can we proceed? All right, let us go with it, Bennett.
So we're back to section 7. Is there any changes to section 7?
If there are none, let us proceed. Section 8. Section 8 is the last.
Leaving the conference.
Jack Matheson.
Okay. All right. So that section 8 will be the last section of that particular article.
Excuse me, but just a point of information. In section 7, should it be individual resident members or are all individual members voting?
But if you are an individual member, it would seem as though you would not be discriminated against because you did not happen to be a resident as well at an annual meeting. What does the Bennett feel?
I'm trying to look at your, yeah, I mean, as it's written, and we haven't gotten to that section, but it's Article 10, but it'll be renumbered, but you actually did pass Article 10 on a previous conference call, and Section 6 of that article says all individual and supporting members shall be entitled to vote. And you actually passed that article on a previous call, yes.
Okay, all righty. Okay, then proceed, please, Bennett.
As your chair said, based on your previous actions, we would renumber and create a new article. So Section 9 would be Section 1 of the new article, but it relates to membership meetings. What I would say is Section 9, 10, and 11, you should move back up to Article 7. So they would become Article, effectively, 7, 8, and 9.
No, 5.
No, that's 6 and 7. 5, 6, and 7. Sorry, folks. So, yeah, so it's just a renumbering. So the question is, do you have any changes to those?
Because we had changed the number of the board,
takes office, they could be the president-elect, and then
Sorry. If you look at the
bow out.
terms,
Right.
there are terms, and according to Section 6, the officers shall assume their office or the offices immediately upon elections to serve a one-year term or until their successor takes office, if later. But they may be re-elected. But I think that covers the waterfront. Am I wrong or right, Bennett? What's your take?
No, I believe that's fairly clear in that section 6 of that same article.
Yeah, I think this points out the importance that the bylaws be viewed as an organic document. This picking them apart section by section is just creating a hodgepodge.
And you know, a lot of this is going to be covered through the policies and procedures, which will then clarify a lot of the questions that people may have. So, you know, this is our skeleton guideline, and then all of the ramifications, all of the exceptions we can handle courtesy of the policies and procedures. Those are easier to change than it is to go through a whole document like this and do it every year or every 6 months.
Madam Chair, I move that Article 8 be adopted as presented.
Is there a second to that?
Second, Charlie Falk.
Charlie Falk. All right, any other?
I have a question. On Section 1, is the past president and a voting member?
No.
It says no.
Yeah,
Honorary.
that's addressed in section 3.
Okay, thank you.
So they will not have a vote.
Okay, thank you.
A minor change, since we changed it to resident member on Section 3 of Article 7. Do you think on Section 2, with individual or supporting member, that should be changed to resident member?
I don't know. Oh. What's in a word? Individual member or supporting member. Jack, what's in a word?
Well, I'm just reflecting. I'm trying to give a little thought to what Bob Smith's saying here. He wants just residents to be the only people who can do stuff. There may be times when somebody who's not a resident is the best person to do something, and we might want to appoint somebody to a position because of their particular qualification. Resident. One of the problems that we have, frankly, is that residents are older people, and many of them are tired and running out of energy, or they want things simplified and this and that.
Have high blood pressure.
And so I don't think we want to tie our hands all the time by some kind of tribal thinking.
Jack, just to be consistent, I mean, we did say only individual resident members over here on Section 3, and can't we do?
Well, you restricted the board to residents. Now you're saying nobody who can serve the community. For example, Bennett now is our administrative officer, and you're saying that Bennett would have to be a resident. I just, where are you heading?
Yeah, this is the hard part because that makes them second-class citizens. So, what's in a word? Right. Okay, unless there was a second to that, we're just going to proceed. Right? Go ahead, Matt.
Yes, ma'am. If there was no second to Mr. Smith's commentary, you've got a motion and a second on the floor to adopt Article 8 as presented.
Can I call for the question? Everybody?
I'll call for the question. Walpole here.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so, and opposed? So let us, Bennett, proceed first.
We did have at least one nay. I need to make sure I count.
Okay. Any opposed?
I abstain.
All right.
I think I only heard one nay and one
And one
abstain.
abstention, okay. So all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's it. So we're on to Section 9.
Yes, ma'am. That's duties of officers.
But I've got everything marked, and I can
eliminate Section 3. I don't think we should be talking about liaison with any organization. That can happen, but it shouldn't be in the bylaws.
Could be in the policies and procedures.
Yes, it could be any place, but not bylaws.
All right, are you wanting to make a motion?
And I made motion to eliminate Section 3.
And your name?
Judy Moss.
Judy Moss. Any second to that?
I thought we were on section 9.
We are.
We're on Article 9, but she's in Section 3 of that article.
Oh, okay.
That reads, the president shall also serve as a primary liaison between NACRA and the national leading age and with other organizations cooperating with NACRA. And her motion is to eliminate that section. And there was a second?
There was not.
There was not a second.
Not yet.
Well,
second.
this is Jack Cumming. I'll second it. I think that would be more appropriate in the policy and procedure, so I'll agree with Judy on that one.
Okay. So you ready for the question? So all in favor?
Question on Section 6.
Wait a minute, we're on Section 3.
Section 3. Yeah, we're just calling the question on that. The recommendation to delete Section 3.
All right, so all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed to that? Okay, so that is eliminated, Section 3.
All right, Ruth?
Yes.
Section 4, you keep harping on this president-elect, but essentially you are electing the president the year before.
That's right.
I don't.
That is absolutely, if you had been in my shoes, you would know how important this is. You have to have some training before you undertake this position.
I agree, but why not have a senior vice president?
No, what's in a word, Al?
Well, what's in a word is the vote. Right now, there's no vote except the year before that we're selecting that president.
That's right.
Not correct. Excuse me. Article 8, Section 2, it says that they will all be elected at the first meeting of the board each year. And it says in the ordinary course, the president-elect will accede to the office of president. That means that they can elect somebody else if they choose.
Does everybody agree with that?
He is elected.
It's clear here. If you approve that, excuse me for interrupting you, Al.
Al, what's bothering you, Al? Because I think something's really.
What's bothering me seems to be straightened out. That if the president-elect is elected to be president.
Right.
Yes, that's what the rules say.
That's the normal course of events. That
No,
happens.
he's elected. There's a vote.
Yes, correct. In normal circumstances, this would be what happens. I belong to an educators group, and they elect a president-elect, and you are groomed, and I mean groomed, for your job as president. So that's
But
all
is that
this is.
person elected, even if it's a formality?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, that they're not even elected. That they assume that position. So this is all we're saying. We're just grooming somebody to be the president of the organization. If anything happens to them physically, mentally, that's another issue. But in the normal course of events, this would be what was happening.
But I don't hear the word that in the normal course of events, when the president is no longer president, a new board will elect the president-elect. So it's not a given.
If you look at Section 4, it says, unless the board finds that there are compelling reasons to the contrary, the president-elect shall succeed to the office of president when the president's term ends or sooner if the president is no longer able to perform the duties of that office or elects to resign. So all the bases are covered. I'm sorry, I'm editorializing and I'm sorry, but I'm not. Bennett.
No, you're correct. I think it's a correct assessment.
Madam Chair, I note that we're coming up on the hour and a half point, and I think we found that we fatigue out, but also I think the fact that we've now talked about this for 4.5 full hours shows the dysfunction of the organization. We must make NACRA address the needs of residents and not just the power play among individuals, or we're going to go nowhere.
Motion that the rest of this article be adopted as written.
Is there a second?
Oh, wait, I believe you already had that motion, I believe.
Oh, we did that.
Yeah, that was for the previous article.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, you're correct, sorry.
All right, so all we have done on this particular Article 9 is to eliminate Section 3.
Correct, sorry.
And the rest of it goes as, you know, Al, there's a trust factor. Nobody's going to be doing any maneuvering around. You're going to.
I would like to discuss Section 10.
Okay, well, can I? All right.
Before you get to that, Stan Robinson, Section 6, the last full line, is not worded properly.
But we'll take care of that in a second. But Al, are you okay with Section 4?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Al,
Yes, I'll accept it.
okay. All right.
I was cautioning, that's all.
All right. We have that under.
Okay.
We'll make note of that.
And I'll just, Madam Chair, I'll just address Dan Robinson. Dan's raised this question before. He feels that the syntax there could have been improved, and maybe it could, but I disagree that it's not clear. What it's simply saying
I'm not saying it's not clear, I'm saying it's not worded properly.
well, it is worded properly. It's perfectly.
The word there that should be taken out.
What?
Read that one that you're
Right
talking
now
about.
it says that the organization can afford for reimbursement of directors, etc. It should afford the reimbursement or afford to reimburse, but not afford for reimburse.
All you're doing is wanting to change one word.
Well,
That's all.
Dan.
Yes, Bennett.
Dan, there's a nuance here that it's not that the organization can reimburse. It's saying if reimbursement would impair the mission, then the treasurer has to take that into account.
So you can't do what you can't do.
But, well, there may be other priorities that call for expenditure.
There's 3 people talking at once in this. So first, Dan, anything more?
No. Okay. If we're talking about the rest of the article, yeah, I think sections 8, 9, 10, and 11 are, as was other stuff, too much detail for this purpose. This should be in your policies and procedures, and not in the bylaws.
Okay, second that.
And that's 8, 9, 10, and 11?
9, 10, and 11.
9, 10, 11.
So that's an H, wherever it is, the procedure laid out in Section 10 would mean that any position could not be adopted except after a long procedure.
Madam Chair, if I could, I need to get us where we need to be. Before we move off Section 6, Mr. Cumming, would you accept the word "the" instead of "for" as a technical amendment?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So going back to the previous commentary, just to make sure, are there any changes to Section 7 anybody proposed?
Then
I have a change in Section 6.
what further in Section 6?
Not the budget for adoption by the board. I think the budget for any organization should be adopted by the members, not the board. That's a conflict of interest.
Well, in this new in this new format that we're doing with the board of directors, that would, because, and that in the scheme of things, we could have 22,000 people voting on this, and it's really the board who has the feel of the budget and this sort of thing. So the board would adopt it and then speak to it. Is this correct? And Bennett?
Let me put it this way, to what your chair's point is. There's two elements here. It gives you, it gives the board effectively the ability, and more than likely would share the budget. And if, correct me if I'm wrong, NACRA has consistently shared the budget with its membership.
Exactly.
But the issue is who has the wherewithal and who has the information to make an informed decision on adopting and voting on the budget. That's your policy-making board that are managing and overseeing the strategic plan and your day-to-day operations. Your general membership's not necessarily going to have the information to make an informed decision. I'm not saying it shouldn't be transparent. It should. I'm just saying under IRS regulations, your fiduciary authority rests with your board of directors.
Right.
And in addition to that, it's very clear in the NACRA Lifeline that we are bending every effort to inform all of our members, and that Joe's always done a really good job of presenting the budget and this sort of thing. So it's not that we're keeping everybody in the dark.
I was unaware of the IRS fiduciary responsibility on the board, so I withdraw that.
Oh, thank you. Okay, Bennett, off we go.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I heard clearly before, I think Section 7, there weren't any changes. Section 8, people were comfortable leaving that in the bylaws, but 9, 10, and 11 is what was proposed to come to policies and procedures. Is that correct?
Yes. All right. Is there any objection to that by consensus? So this would be Section 9, 10, and 11 of Article 9.
Right.
And by consensus, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that moves to policies and procedures. Oh, good. We're off to the meeting. It's actually Article 10.
Well, it's actually better than, if I can, Madam Chair, Article 10, 11, 12, those three articles this body had already passed on a previous conference call. So you only actually have Article 13 and 14 that this group has not discussed and voted on.
Okay, so that's the Article 11 is dues and contributions.
Leading the conference.
Right, you already passed those.
Okay, you approved that, and then committees, Article 12, that's also been approved.
That's correct.
Senator Robinson, Article 10, Section 5, a quorum, is that correct still? No less than 5 directors, is that?
The other thing we just changed was a simple majority.
Yeah, but this doesn't say that.
I know, but can we change this particular...
Dan, you may...
I mean, I believe his point would be in order based on your actions today, and it probably should be consistent. A quorum shall consist of the members present and no less than a simple majority of the directors.
Okay.
Thank you.
The majority of the directors.
Simple majority of the no, just say no. Well, they would. Obviously, I think it's in here that they would have to be present.
Okay. Okay.
This one, is it necessary to have Section 5 in there since we've already determined that?
Well, that's a good point.
I guess depending on this, Mr. Boyer, what I would say, because this speaks to meetings of the membership, because you do have members that will be attending the annual meeting to vote on the board, you do have to have some narrative that speaks to, how a quorum of members is established. So I think it probably should stay.
Okay.
Alrighty. So if that's the case, then we're moving on then to Article 13 amendments.
That's fine.
And I think was there anybody who had a correction or a comment about?
This is Beth High for amendment section 1. After notice, I would add of at least 45 days.
Okay, so would you
Or it could be 30 days, with electronic stuff, everybody.
could you read that just to let me get that correctly the way you have reworded?
Section 1, Article 13. These bylaws or future amendments thereto shall be approved by a vote of 2/3 of all individual members voting after notice of at least 30 days.
Okay.
The last known mailing address of all such members in good standing.
Madam Chair.
Lawyer, I think that's covered in section 2, is it not?
Exactly. Exactly.
You'll be
Yes.
given 2 months within.
That wasn't an amendment, that was in relationship to nominations.
Madam Chair, I think what I would say to the maker of the recommendation, the 30 days, I think her recommendation is actually proper because section 2 only speaks to the voting time period, not the notice time period. So I think it would be appropriate to include that.
To that.
Madam Chair, I'm a little puzzled here, and I'm trying to follow Bennett's logic but what this says is you give notice, and then people have 2 months to vote. So you notice occurs when you put the thing in the mail. How are you gonna put it in the mail 45 days before you put it in the mail? That makes no sense. So I think what you're saying is you give notice, you put it in the mail. That gives notice. And then they have 2 months to answer. The vote is complete at the expiration of 2 months. If they didn't get it back in that time, it didn't count. It doesn't.
So then section 2 simply follows section 1.
Yeah.
I withdraw my commentary because I believe, now that Mr. Cummings explained it, I think that's clear rationale is they effectively have up to 60 days notice, if you will. It's just, they're clearly getting plenty of notice and time to submit their vote.
Okay, now I know that was a motion, and I think it was seconded by Walt.
No, I did not second.
You did not second. Did anybody second that?
No, they did not.
So there is no vote.
I can withdraw it.
Yep. Thank you.
Because you feel it's covered in section 2.
Yes.
Okay. Can we then move to adopt Article 13?
Well, I think we should refer.
Can I ask one question?
Wait. There was one question.
The individual members,
Pardon me?
no room.
Thank you. As written, I believe it literally says that the changes in the old bylaws that we've now been discussing would not be amended except as specified in section 1. I don't think that's what you intend.
Jack,
Yeah.
you
Let me look at the words here for a second.
This is Article 14, the effective date.
Oh, this is 13.
13,
section.
These bylaws refers to bylaws in general. We have current bylaws, and they're going to be replaced by the new bylaws that we're discussing now. But both are bylaws. We have continuous bylaws from the date of organization, formation of the organization. So these here refers to that continuum of bylaws.
Ambiguity could be removed by deleting or future.
It could be wordsmithed differently, and if you want to wordsmith it, Bill, that's your prerogative. But
I just want to make sure we knew what we were doing.
You better
We were not subjecting what we're now revising to this procedure.
no.
Mr. Root, Mr. Cummings, Ms. Madam Chair, if I could interject
Yes,
something.
please do.
If people would accept this as a friendly recommendation, you could say amendments to the bylaws shall be approved by a vote of 2/3, and then remaining language.
I agree.
Are you on section 4 of Article
No,
13?
I'm on section 1. All we're saying is just start with the word amendments and say amendments to the bylaws shall be approved by.
Well, future amendments to the bylaws shall be approved. Future amendments to the bylaws. I agree.
Right.
Okay, Ruth, can I ask a question?
Yes.
When it says individual members, that means the state and the community don't vote?
2/3 of all individual members, and that. What in the world is that? No, all right. What do you say, Bennett? Please.
I mean, his question is the class of membership categories that are allowed to vote on bylaws amendments. He is reading it correctly that at least for bylaws amendments, that would be individual members would be the
That's correct.
membership
State
category.
associations or not?
That is correct.
Okay.
And
That's what this says then, Al.
they don't have votes now. So there's no change.
I just want to make sure because
Good.
An individual member shall be notified. All right, so, and that means exactly what it means. All right, anything else?
All right, I have a question, a general question in regards to nominations. Are we functioning under the new bylaws or the old bylaws?
This is what I'm happy you said that because we have been bogged down here, and I was wondering if I could ask for a resolution to ask all officers and board members to continue in office until September, except that any individuals who need to be relieved in the interim could do that. But then the actual election will take place in April. That should have taken place in April. Will be deferred till the October meeting when we get the bylaws all set and we get everything else in place. Is that a possibility?
sounds good to me.
Yeah, I accept that.
Okay, so what about the new ones that I've already brought on?
They could be members of the fold.
Madam Chair, if I can, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I need, if we could complete the bylaws and then go to the resolution.
Okay. Yes.
Is anybody having further changes to 13 or 14?
Sorry, Bennett, I get so carried away.
Obviously, the effective date under Article 14 would change, but does anybody have any other substantive changes?
No. What date would it be, Bennett?
Well, I mean, depending on the outcome of the day, but I would say February 14th. Yeah.
Okay.
But to go back to your resolution, I believe the intent of your resolution is all you're asking for is a delay and delaying the effective date of when the new directors would take office.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Meaning to the fall meeting.
Yeah, to give Beth High a chance to, because we've put her in a heck of a predicament, and
Yeah,
so
I know. She's done very well. I think everybody can, that we could just adopt that. What do you say, Jack?
yeah, I agree.
It makes sense.
Julia wanted off and Al wanted off.
I do.
And
We'll fill in the gaps. Fear not.
okay. Sorry,
Whose phone is ringing?
It was mine.
Or do I have bells in my head? All right.
No, it was mine. I'm sorry.
Okay, so if you will approve this resolution by acclamation, I would be grateful to you beyond measure. So,
Okay, so we'll vote.
Colin, you want me to read it again?
No.
You all set?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Alright.
And don't anybody say no. I thank you so much.
I have one other article I want to suggest.
Alrighty.
Normally in a set of bylaws, there's a concluding article that declares rules of order, and I want to know whether they want to do that here. Usually
Usually it says something like Robert's Rules of Order as amended or something.
Yes, it does. Is there any objection to that?
No,
No problem. All right, and because Robert's rules would prevail. Pardon?
Ruth,
What?
as a matter of record, I'd like to recommend that Bennett take a roll call because we've had a lot of people getting off. So let's find out how many people actually were here when the final vote was taken.
On the resolution, you mean? Or on the resolution, is that correct?
Or on the bylaws?
Okay, I can restate who was here. We have recorded the votes.
Who's here now?
I don't think we need to do that. I think if you have a quorum at the beginning of the meeting, you have a quorum for the meeting, the meeting has acted. I don't think we want to call into question the credibility of this meeting by any kind of obfuscation at this point.
And we have actually been, there's been more consensus today, and so that's good.
I believe, I concur with Mr. Cummings' commentary, but Mr. Lane, to give you some comfort, I believe the only person we heard, because they're denoted when they leave the call, was Bob Nicholson and Jack Matheson. You still have, 15 people present.
Fine.
Good. All right, now, I appreciate this. We get through in record time. It's now 10 minutes of 4, and we have completed this. Anything else, Bennett, we need to handle here?
Have we had a vote on the entire bylaws, acceptance of the changes?
Well, you've done it by section.
Yeah, you don't have to do it again.
You've done it section by section, article by article, so you don't have to do it in its entirety.
Okay.
And these will become effective, and we're going to, I'm sure, have sessions called Bylaws 101 to explain to everyone what it's all about, because there are some changes, but I think it's superior, and we're going to continue to go forward, and that's the biggest issue, is to keep our ship afloat and keep going. And it's not like whatever that poor ship is out in the middle of nowhere. I hope we have some direction, and that's wonderful, and I thank you all so much. Is there any question about, and Marlene has done a beautiful job of the new proof on the March-April lifeline and the registration fees there. She's done that's superior. That's wonderful, Marlene. Thank you so much. Are there any questions for anybody? And I'll send you a rundown on the registration. And we will have our NACRA board meeting on Thursday, the 4th of April, starting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it will be a dinner meeting, and the Carpenters will be treating us to dinner, so they're wonderful to do that. So we're going to need to get some numbers for you eventually from you.
Rifkin, one quick question.
Sure enough.
Carpenters has normally, when they hosted an organization like this, invited both our resident council and our FLACRA chapter officers to have dinner with the visiting board. Is that going to be permissible with you at this dinner or not?
How many are we talking? I'm just thinking of
probably an additional 25 people.
Well, we'll
You take care of this off the conference call.
Yeah, we'll take care of it later. We'll work out those dynamics. Is there anything else to bring to the board? And Marlene, you feeling okay?
Conference.
Ron Herring.
Marlene, you feeling well?
Yeah.
Okay. Everything's going well. Okay. Anything else for the good of the service?
Well, I want to thank you, Ruth and Bennett and Marlene, for all that you do. You really are great.
Amen.
I'll second that.
Thank you very, very much. And thank you to Bennett and to and Jack and
Bennett
his
has
group.
been a marvel.
Well, thank you
Marvel of
for your time.
patience.
You're very kind.
Oh,
Peterson.
And there's nobody here? Ruth Walsh.